The sun was setting behind the shattered mountains, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. In the middle of the ruined palace, a small dragon lay curled on the cold stone floor. Her scales, once bright like fire, were now dull and cracked. Her wings trembled as she tried to stretch them, but they were too weak. She was hungry. Starving, even. Aurora, the dragon princess, had seen better days. Her kingdom had been destroyed by alien invaders months ago. Fire and destruction had swept across the land, and now the forests were gone, the rivers dry, and her people scattered or captured. She had escaped with nothing but her life, and even that was fragile. Every day was a struggle. Every night, she shivered, thinking of the home she had lost and the friends who would never return. She tried to move to a pile of rubble that once was her throne room, but her stomach ached too much, and her legs were weak. Hunger was not the only thing that weighed on her. Fear and loneliness pressed on her chest like heavy stones. She had always been brave, a princess trained in battle and wisdom, but now courage felt empty. There was no army to lead, no advisors to guide her, and no magic strong enough to fight against the cruel invaders. Aurora's golden eyes, dim now from exhaustion, scanned the horizon. Shadows moved among the ruins. Perhaps scavengers, perhaps enemies. She hissed softly, but her voice was weak. She wanted to roar, to show the world she was still alive, still powerful, but her throat was dry, and the energy for such things had long left her. Not far away, in a small settlement carved into the cliffs, a human named Ethan was finishing his work. His hands were covered in grease and soot from repairing old starship engines. He was tired, and the lines on his face showed the long years of struggle. He was a single father, raising a young daughter alone in a colony where resources were scarce, and life was never easy. Every day was a fight to find enough food, to fix broken machines, to make sure his daughter went to bed with full stomachs and warm blankets. Ethan often went out scavenging in the nearby ruins, looking for anything that could be useful. Sometimes, it was old tools. Sometimes, it was scraps of metal that could be sold for food. And sometimes, it was just hope. He did not know he was about to find more than just supplies on this evening. As he climbed the crumbling path that led past the ruined palace, he noticed a movement. A flicker of gold among the gray stones. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. But then he saw her. A small dragon, lying still, her chest rising and falling slowly. Ethan froze. Dragons were rare and dangerous creatures, but this one, she was not moving like a threat. She was weak. Hungry. Afraid. Aurora's head lifted slightly. She sensed him watching. Her body tensed, claws digging into the stone. Fear and hunger mixed in her mind. Humans had caused pain to dragons before. They had burned forests, captured her friends, and taken everything she loved. But this human, he did not look like the soldiers she remembered. His eyes were gentle, but careful, and his movements were slow, deliberate. He did not reach for a weapon. Ethan stepped closer, holding nothing but a small bag of food he had brought for his daughter. He kneeled a few feet away from her, trying to make himself look smaller, less threatening. "Hey," he whispered, his voice soft. "I'm not going to hurt you. I want to help." Aurora's ears twitched. Could she trust him? Hunger gnawed at her stomach. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to fight. But the pain in her belly was stronger than her fear. Her wings twitched, and she slowly moved closer to the smell of food. Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out a piece of cooked meat. Not much, just enough to offer her a taste. He set it on the ground and took a few steps back, keeping his eyes on her. "It's safe," he said. "Just try a bite." Aurora sniffed the meat. It smelled strange, not like the raw prey she was used to. But it also smelled good. She hesitated. Her mind was a battle between fear and need. Finally, the hunger won. She leaned forward and took a small bite. The taste exploded in her mouth, warm and comforting. Her body shivered as strength began to seep back into her muscles. Ethan smiled softly. Good, he said quietly. You'll get stronger. You just need some help. For the first time in months, Aurora felt a spark of hope. Maybe survival was possible. Maybe not all humans were cruel. Maybe she could trust this one. But she still had a long journey ahead. Hunger had almost killed her, and enemies were still out there. She had to grow stronger, and she had to decide if she would trust this human, or keep fighting alone. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ruined palace, a small bond began to form between the human and the dragon princess. A bond born not of magic or power, but of courage, kindness, and the simple act of sharing a meal. It was a fragile beginning, but it was a beginning. And in a world where hope was rare, beginnings were precious. Aurora lifted her head, golden eyes shining faintly in the twilight, and watched the human carefully. He was different from the others. Perhaps, just perhaps, he was someone who could change her story. The next morning, the air was crisp, and the ruins were quiet except for the soft whisper of the wind. Aurora had slept on the cold stones, but her body felt a little stronger than the night before. The warmth of the small meal Ethan had given her lingered in her belly, and for the first time in weeks, she stretched her wings without pain. Her golden eyes flicked over the ruined palace, alert for any danger. She had learned quickly that trust was rare, and survival depended on caution. Ethan, meanwhile, had returned early, carrying a larger bag of supplies. He had spent the night thinking about the dragon. He could not stop himself from wondering what it must be like to be her, so alone, so hungry, so small against a world that had turned cruel. He had never met a dragon up close, and yet he felt something in his chest, responsibility. Not just for the dragon, but for the hope that maybe, in helping her, he could do something truly meaningful. As he approached the ruins again, Aurora lifted her head. She saw him coming and froze. She had survived alone for so long that the sight of another human filled her with fear. Every instinct screamed at her to fly, to hide, to strike before he could harm her. But hunger and curiosity pulled her forward at the same time. She lowered herself slightly, wings tucked tight, eyes narrowed. Ethan stopped a few feet away and knelt down, careful not to make any sudden movements. He laid his bag on the ground and opened it slowly. "I brought more food," he said softly. "And water. You must be thirsty." He poured a small amount into a makeshift bowl. The sound of liquid hitting metal echoed across the ruins, and Aurora's ears twitched. She edged closer. Hunger gnawed at her more fiercely than fear now. Her claws scraped lightly across the stone floor. She glanced at Ethan's hands, watching for any sign of danger. He held nothing threatening, just more food, carefully prepared. It smelled different from the raw meat she had eaten before, but strangely comforting. Tentatively, she took a small step forward. Ethan smiled, careful not to startle her. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe with me. I won't hurt you." Aurora's heart raced. Could she believe him? Could she risk letting her guard down after so long? She had been hunted, starved, and betrayed. Every human she had ever met had either fled or attacked. But there was something in his calm, careful presence that felt different. Something that whispered hope, even if she did not fully understand it yet. She inched closer and sniffed the food. It smelled warm, fresh, and strangely inviting. She lowered her head and took a cautious bite. The taste was new, unlike anything she had ever eaten. Warmth spread through her belly, chasing away some of the cold emptiness. She chewed slowly, savoring each bite, and her eyes closed for a moment as strength returned to her weak body. Ethan watched her closely, noting every movement. "That's it," he whispered. "Take your time. You don't have to be afraid." Aurora finished the small portion and lifted her head. She felt a flicker of energy in her wings and a spark of life returning to her tired body. For the first time since her kingdom had fallen, she felt a tiny sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, survival was possible. Ethan carefully reached into his bag again and pulled out a piece of dried fruit and some clean water. You'll need more than that first meal, he said softly. I know it's not much, but it will help you get stronger. Aurora hesitated, claws dug into the stone. Could she trust him enough to take it? Her body screamed yes, but her mind whispered caution. Slowly, she leaned forward and accepted the food. Each bite gave her more strength, and she began to feel something she had not felt in months: safety. The human watched her, careful to move slowly. I know you've been through a lot, he said. I don't know what happened here, but I can help you. We can survive together. Aurora blinked at him. Could a human truly be trusted? She did not understand the words fully, but she understood the tone, the calm, patient care in his voice. She decided to risk it, just a little. She stepped closer, her golden eyes never leaving his face. For a moment, the ruins were silent. Just a dragon and a human, two creatures from different worlds, sharing a moment of fragile trust. Aurora felt her wings twitch with new strength, and Ethan felt his heart lift, knowing he was making a real difference. Then a noise echoed from the distance, a branch snapping, a stone shifting. Both of them froze. Aurora's ears twitched, her body tense and ready to flee. Ethan's hand went to his bag, where he kept a small tool he could use as a weapon if needed. They were not alone. Danger could return at any moment. But instead of fear, something else rose in both of them: determination. Aurora had survived this long, and she was not about to give up now. Ethan had come this far, and he would not let her down. Together, they were stronger than they had been alone. Aurora lifted her head higher, golden eyes bright with new energy. She stretched her wings just a little, testing their strength. Ethan smiled softly, encouraged by the progress. Good, he said. You're doing well. One step at a time, and we'll get through this. The ruins were still dangerous, the future uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, hope stirred in the Dragon Princess's heart. And in that quiet morning light, a bond began to form, one born of courage, kindness, and the simple act of sharing a meal. It was small, fragile, and tentative, but it was a start. Aurora looked at the human carefully, and he met her gaze with the same careful patience. Neither knew what lay ahead, but both understood one truth: sometimes survival depended not on power or magic, but on trust and courage. The sun had climbed higher, painting the ruins in a pale gold light. Aurora's stomach rumbled loudly, reminding her that her strength was still limited. She shifted on the stones, watching Ethan carefully. He moved slowly, as if he understood every twitch of her claws and every flicker of her tail. Ethan knelt a few feet away, digging through his bag for ingredients. He had not planned for a dragon when he packed breakfast, but now he was determined. He pulled out a small container of cooked meat, some fresh herbs, and a few dried vegetables. They were simple, basic things, but he hoped they would give the princess some strength. This might look strange to you, he said softly, but it's food. It's safe. You'll like it. Aurora tilted her head. She sniffed the air, curious but cautious. Hunger battled with fear. Her belly ached, reminding her how weak she had become. She had survived weeks with nothing but scraps and water, but even her instincts told her she needed more to regain her power. Ethan set up a small cooking rig with scraps of metal he had found in the ruins. Sparks flew as he connected wires to an old energy source, and the faint hum of electricity filled the air. Aurora watched, tense but intrigued. She had seen humans build machines before, but never like this. There was something clever about the way he worked, careful and precise. The heat rose from the rig, and Ethan carefully placed the meat and vegetables on a small pan. The smell of cooking food filled the air, warm and inviting. Aurora's mouth watered. She had never smelled anything like this. It was not raw prey, it was different, comforting in a way that made her stomach growl even louder. You can eat when you're ready, Ethan said. I'll wait. Aurora hesitated. Her instincts told her to strike, to run, to protect herself. But hunger was stronger. Slowly, she lowered her head and sniffed the food. The smell made her weak knees tremble with anticipation. Carefully, she took a small bite. The taste was unlike anything she had ever known, warm, soft, and full of flavor. Strength seemed to return to her muscles with each chew. Ethan watched closely, his heart racing with a mix of fear and hope. One wrong move, and she could attack. One sudden movement, and the fragile trust they had built could vanish. But she did not. She chewed slowly, savoring the warmth and taste. "Good," Ethan whispered. "You're doing great." Aurora ate more, her golden eyes brightening with each bite. Her wings twitched, feeling stronger. The hunger that had made her weak and fearful was fading. She felt a strange sensation, comfort. Something she had not felt in months. She did not fully understand it, but it was good. As she ate, Ethan added water to a small bowl and placed it beside the food. "Drink when you're ready," he said. "You need water too." Aurora leaned down and drank slowly, the cool liquid soothing her throat and chest. She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth spread through her body. For the first time in weeks, she did not feel completely alone. The human beside her was careful, patient, and kind. Somehow, he had earned a piece of her trust. The meal went on, and with each bite, Aurora's body grew stronger. Her scales shimmered faintly in the sunlight, and her wings stretched further than before. She lifted her head, golden eyes meeting Ethan's. There was a spark there, a silent understanding. Neither spoke, but they both knew that something important was happening. "You'll need more than this," Ethan said quietly. "I know it's not much, but it will help you get stronger. We'll figure out the rest together." Aurora blinked slowly, as if acknowledging him. She did not speak, dragons did not need words to understand, but her body relaxed. Her tail flicked once, a small gesture of trust. Ethan smiled softly, relieved. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed from the ruins nearby. A stone fell, clattering against other rubble. Aurora jumped back, wings flaring instinctively. Her claws dug into the ground as she hissed. Ethan froze too, his eyes scanning the shadows. Danger could be anywhere. But this time, Aurora did not flee. She stood taller, wings partially spread, ready to defend herself if needed. Ethan reached into his bag for a small tool, just in case, but he did not move aggressively. Instead, he kept his tone calm. "It's okay," he said. "We're safe, for now." Aurora watched him, golden eyes sharp. Somehow, she understood that this human was different. He was not like the others who had brought pain. He was clever, patient, and brave. And most importantly, he was kind. She took a deep breath and returned to her meal, though her senses remained alert. As the sun climbed higher, Aurora finished the last of the food. She felt stronger, almost alive again. Her muscles hummed with energy, and her wings twitched as she stretched them fully. She could almost fly again, almost roar again. Her mind, foggy with hunger before, cleared. She could think, plan, and hope. Ethan looked at her, proud but cautious. "Good work," he said. "You're stronger already. Tomorrow, we can try more, and I can teach you a few tricks to get even stronger." Aurora tilted her head and considered him. She did not fully trust him yet, but she knew she needed help. She could survive alone, yes, but with him, she could survive better, maybe even thrive. The meal had done more than fill her belly. It had restored her hope, renewed her strength, and begun a fragile bond between dragon and human. She was no longer completely alone. And for the first time in months, she allowed herself a small thought: perhaps the world was not entirely cruel. Perhaps, with courage, patience, and a little kindness, even a starving dragon princess could begin to live again. The next day, the ruins were quiet, but danger was never far. Aurora stretched her wings in the early sunlight, feeling the strength returning to her muscles. The small meal from Ethan had done more than fill her belly, it had given her hope. Her golden eyes scanned the horizon, alert for any movement. She knew the invaders could return at any moment. Ethan moved carefully beside her, carrying a few tools and small devices he had found in the ruined colony. He knew the aliens would not stop searching for the Dragon Princess, and he refused to let her fall back into their hands. He had a plan, simple, clever, and human. It relied not on strength or magic, but on ingenuity, patience, and courage. "Stay close," he whispered. "I have an idea that might keep us safe, at least for a little while." Aurora watched him, cautious but curious. She had learned to trust him in small ways. He had given her food, water, and a sense of safety she had not felt in months. Still, she remained alert. Her ears twitched at every sound, every shift in the wind. Her claws dug into the stone, ready to defend herself if needed. Ethan began arranging small devices around the ruins. Some were simple traps made from wires and old metal, others were small energy shields scavenged from broken machines. He moved quickly but carefully, his mind working faster than his hands. Each step was deliberate. He placed a holographic projector on a ledge, aiming it toward the entrance of the ruins. "What is that?" Aurora asked, curiosity in her voice. "It's a trick," Ethan said with a small smile. "It will make them think there are more of us here than there really are. Humans are clever that way." Aurora tilted her head. She had seen humans fight before, but not like this. No swords, no fire, just clever ideas and quick thinking. She realized that this small human could change the course of her survival without even using force. It was strange, but impressive. Hours passed as Ethan worked. Aurora stayed close, testing her strength with small stretches and cautious flights around the ruins. Each movement reminded her that she was regaining power, one day at a time. She also began to understand the human's mind, the way he anticipated danger and solved problems. It was not magic, not dragons, not soldiers, it was the courage and cleverness of a human. By late afternoon, the first signs of danger appeared. Shadows moved in the distance, scouts of the alien invaders. Aurora's body tensed, wings spreading slightly. Ethan noticed and activated a small trap. A sudden burst of light and sound echoed across the ruins. The alien scouts faltered, confused by the illusions and barriers Ethan had created. Aurora roared, a deep, powerful sound that shook the stones. She had not felt this strong in weeks. The invaders hesitated, and then fled, unsure of what they faced. Ethan smiled, wiping sweat from his brow. "See," he said. "Humans can fight in more ways than one." Aurora looked at him with new respect. She had always believed dragons were powerful because of their size, strength, and fire. But now she understood something she had never realized: humans were dangerous too, not because they burned or destroyed, but because they thought differently. They could survive in ways others could not imagine. Night came, and the ruins were quiet again. Aurora curled up near Ethan, her body still tired but strong enough to rest. She had eaten more that day, grown stronger, and learned the cleverness of humans firsthand. She realized she could trust him in ways she never thought possible. Ethan sat beside her, cleaning his tools and checking the traps one more time. "We're not safe yet," he said quietly. "But every day we survive is another step toward safety. You're stronger than yesterday, and tomorrow, we'll get stronger still." Aurora listened, understanding the words even if she did not fully grasp the human way of thinking. She could feel the truth in them. Strength was not just in her wings, or her fire, or her claws. Strength was in courage, in planning, in thinking ahead, and in trusting others. The bond between the human and the dragon grew stronger that night. They shared the ruins, each respecting the other's space and abilities. Aurora slept lightly, always alert but comforted by the presence of someone who had proven courage, patience, and skill. Ethan, too, found a strange peace in her company. He had faced many challenges before, but nothing like this. Saving a dragon princess was not just dangerous, it was impossible in the eyes of most people. But he was a human, and humans thrived on what others thought impossible. In the quiet darkness, both felt a shift in the world around them. The aliens might return, stronger and more numerous, but Aurora was no longer helpless. Her wings would carry her, her claws would defend her, and her mind, together with Ethan's cleverness, would outthink any threat. Tomorrow, they would face new dangers. But tonight, they were alive, and alive together. It was a small victory, but a powerful one. Aurora nuzzled closer to Ethan, and he placed a careful hand on her scaled head. Neither spoke, but the understanding was clear. They were a team now, and together, they could survive anything. And in that moment, amid the ruins of a fallen kingdom and the shadows of returning enemies, a truth became clear to both dragon and human: courage was not just in strength. It was in the mind, in cleverness, and in the willingness to face danger with hope, heart, and determination. The stars rose above them, shining like tiny sparks of possibility. Aurora lifted her head and gazed at the sky. She could feel the power returning to her wings, the fire returning to her belly, and a new hope rising in her heart. She was not alone anymore. Not with this human by her side. And for the first time in months, she believed that maybe, just maybe, they could win. The first light of dawn broke over the ruins, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. Aurora stretched her wings fully, feeling the strength returning with every movement. She had grown stronger each day, thanks to the courage and cleverness of the human who had saved her. Her golden eyes sparkled as she scanned the horizon, alert for danger but ready to fight. Ethan stood beside her, tools and small devices strapped to his belt. He had spent the night preparing defenses, setting traps, and planning their strategy. He knew the alien marauders would not give up easily. They were ruthless, strong, and organized. But he also knew that with patience, ingenuity, and determination, humans could overcome even impossible odds. He had survived worse, and now he was determined to protect Aurora. A faint rumble shook the ruins. The alien scouts had returned, this time with reinforcements. Aurora hissed, her wings flaring, and Ethan stepped forward, his mind racing. "Stay behind me," he whispered, though he knew she would not be passive. She was a dragon princess, and she had grown strong again. The first wave of invaders entered the ruined courtyard, scanning for signs of life. Ethan activated his traps. Small devices sparked and whirred, sending bursts of light and sound to confuse the enemies. Holographic projections created illusions of multiple humans and dragons where there were none. The marauders hesitated, unsure of what they were facing. Aurora roared, a deep, commanding sound that shook the ground. She lunged at the nearest alien, claws and teeth flashing, fire flickering from her mouth. The enemies were caught off guard by her sudden strength, and they faltered. Ethan moved strategically, guiding the traps and using his tools to disable some of the alien tech. His human ingenuity turned the tide, allowing Aurora to strike with precision. The battle was fierce but quick. Aurora's wings carried her gracefully through the air, dodging attacks while striking at the enemies. Ethan stayed close, using clever traps, decoys, and quick thinking to protect them both. Together, they were unstoppable. The invaders, overwhelmed by the unexpected combination of dragon strength and human cunning, began to retreat. As the last of the alien forces fled, Aurora landed beside Ethan, panting but proud. Her golden eyes glimmered with gratitude and respect. She nuzzled him lightly, a silent acknowledgement of his bravery and ingenuity. Ethan smiled, exhausted but triumphant. He had faced impossible odds before, but nothing compared to this moment. Together, they had survived. The ruins were quiet once more. Smoke and dust hung in the air, but the immediate danger was gone. Aurora spread her wings and lifted into the sky, circling above the ruins. She felt alive, powerful, and free. The first real meal had given her strength, but it was the courage and cleverness of a human that had saved her life. She had learned something new: humans could be more than weak and fragile, they could be heroes. Ethan watched her from below, feeling a strange pride. He had saved a dragon princess, protected a kingdom's last hope, and proved that human courage and ingenuity could change the outcome of impossible situations. He turned to his daughter, who had been watching from a safe distance, and saw her eyes wide with admiration. They had witnessed something extraordinary together. Aurora landed gracefully, her scales glimmering in the morning light. She looked at Ethan with a silent question, "What now?" Ethan smiled softly. "Now," he said, "we rebuild. We stay strong. And we make sure no one ever threatens you again." Aurora lifted her wings and gave a powerful flap. She felt the fire in her belly, the strength in her muscles, and the determination in her heart. She was ready to fight again if needed, but now she also understood the power of trust. She could rely on humans, not just for food, but for strategy, courage, and hope. Together, Aurora and Ethan began exploring the ruins. They found scattered supplies, broken machines, and hidden treasures left behind by the fallen kingdom. Ethan quickly assessed each item, turning scraps into tools, weapons, and food. His cleverness turned chaos into order, and Aurora's strength allowed them to move quickly and safely. As the sun climbed higher, the ruined palace began to feel alive again. Not as it had before, but alive in a new way. Aurora perched on a high ledge, golden eyes scanning the horizon. Ethan worked beside her, a human who had faced danger, solved impossible problems, and saved a dragon princess. Together, they had created a new beginning. By evening, the air was calm. Aurora's roar echoed across the ruins, not in anger, but in triumph. She had survived starvation, fear, and loss. She had regained her strength and learned the power of courage and trust. Humans were fragile in many ways, yes, but they were clever, brave, and capable of extraordinary things. Ethan stood beside her, watching the sky turn orange and red. He felt a quiet satisfaction. The impossible had been done. A dragon princess had been saved, a kingdom's hope preserved, and a bond formed between two very different creatures. The world was dangerous, but with courage, ingenuity, and trust, humans could change it. Aurora looked at Ethan once more. She understood the truth now: survival was not just about strength or fire. It was about courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when hope seemed lost. And humans, sometimes small, sometimes fragile, but always clever and brave, were capable of extraordinary heroism. As night fell, they rested together in the ruins, not as dragon and human, but as partners. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, and new adventures. But tonight, they had triumphed. And in that victory, a new beginning was born, for the dragon princess, for the human, and for a world where courage, kindness, and ingenuity could turn even despair into hope.